going to accept this 5 million shilling car grant, which is supposed to be wired directly to your account by the end of this month, totaling 2.1 billion shillings for all members of Parliament. That's the Senate and the National Assembly. Are you saying you're going to decline and return that money to the Parliamentary Service Commission?
I want to reiterate the position of the presidency. I am reiterating the position of the presidency as the deputy chief of the Jubilee party.
Is not entitled to this.
It is my work to sell the Jubilee agenda and to explain the rationale. The rationale of the government.
It is a very direct question.
You know very well my life as a parliamentarian is always to share with my brethren. So I'll share with my brethren.
He will take it first. He will take it first. First of all,
yes,
you know, this is one of the more dishonest discussions and from Jubilee. When my brother here says it is the position of Jubilee, let us look at the things that they say and the things that they do. You know, the president one time came out and said, oh, he doesn't want, I think it was, he was going to take a pay cut himself. Only for it to emerge later that that pay cut was never taken. So when Irungu Kangata is saying he's advancing the president's positions and he cannot say clearly that he will not take the 5 million, I believe him, because he's just acting like Uhuru. He will take that money. That story of sharing with his constituents, I'm sure you and me have no way of auditing whether that money will reach the residents of Murang'a. I personally, you put the question to me as well, I personally have said it and had said it as a campaign promise that I would take a 50% pay cut. Because you see, the problem with this discussion about the wage bill, it is not a genuine discussion about the wage bill. When they talk about the wage bill,
especially when it comes to legislators.
Exactly. They don't talk about themselves as a leadership. They're looking to cut doctors. They're looking to cut teachers. The essential services that actually wananchi need. But they will never speak about themselves. So it is a disingenuous discussion. We know for a fact that the Jubilee position is to say one thing and do the other. Just like the president did with his so-called pay cut. And Mheshimiwa Irungu Kangata is being true when he says that he's advancing the position.
The president came out clearly and said he supports fully the review by SRC, including for members of parliament. Now, if at all Jubilee, and according to Bwana Sifuna, if at all Jubilee is genuine about, even the president was genuine about what he said, shouldn't he therefore order all Jubilee members of parliament to decline the card grant because that had already been scrapped, don't you think?
No, here we are talking of the executive. What is the position of the executive? You see, Serem was under the executive branch, right? And it is the executive branch which slashed these allowances and salaries.
Are you defying the executive?
No. So the point I'm trying to say, ab initio, all these allowances were cut down by the executive. And by the way, this is the first time in the history of this country to have a situation where the executive is slashing allowances of members of parliament, of other public civil servants. The reason why we have now gone back to that original position is because of a valid court order. Unless you want to tell Uhuru Kenyatta to defy a court order.
We're not defying, we're not defying the court order.
So the point is, be fair to Uhuru Kenyatta, his position is known. He is the one who initiated these reforms, and Uhuru Kenyatta must be supported in his endeavor to ensure.
Don't you think that part of supporting the president on this issue about salaries review is for Jubilee members of the National Assembly and the Senate to decline the card grant, for example, and some of these mileage allowances that had already been reviewed?
Of course, you know, Parliament is independent. Of course, we are aware of that.
Now Parliament is
independent. Of course, no doubt about it. It is true. It is true. It is an independent entity. But on the other hand, the government position and His Excellency's position, he has always been restated. And by the way, it's not only through talking. He is the one who must have instructed Serem to do that. Of course, it goes without saying. You cannot do some of these policy shifts without having a paper, what we call a cabinet paper, being presented before the president, and that paper being discussed, and that paper being adopted through what was done by Serem. So the point is, we need to celebrate Uhuru Kenyatta for the first time. We're having a president who is, endeavoring. No, allow me.
Let me say something. I mean,
allow me to make that final statement. The president.
By the way, me, I've never had Raila Odinga talk of salaries. By the way, from the last time I've been checking newspapers, for several years. I've never seen NASA's position on that. In fact, so therefore, we need to celebrate Uhuru Kenyatta.
You know, it's almost comical when my brother talks about parliamentary independence. Under the Jubilee government, in fact, the first institution that they emasculated was Parliament. A Jubilee member of Parliament does not have an independent position on anything outside his house, including my brother here. He cannot sponsor any motion on the floor to help the people of Muranga that was originated from himself. Everything. Let me finish. Everything. If you want to cough, you go to State House and you get a cheat. Then you are given a go-ahead to cough. President Kenyatta himself at the after the election of August 8th was at State House, and he was saying that now that they have an almost super majority in the House, they can do anything they want. So your question is very valid, that indeed if it was the President's position today that he wants the MPs, from Jubilee, which is essentially the National Assembly and the Senate, the Parliament itself, as he has put it himself, to do away with that car grant, there will be no discussion of a court order. So my brother wants to hide behind the court order, but the fact of the matter is that one of the biggest tragedies in this country is that distinction between the legislature and the executive has completely been lost, and there is absolutely no difference between Parliament and State House. That is why even the election of a member of a committee, the chairperson of a committee, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto have to pinpoint who to elect for which committee. I mean, if that is not emasculation, then you come and talk about parliamentary independence. It's a joke. I mean, it's farcical. People will laugh every time that he says things like those. He knows it's not true.
Well, yes, the reason why I wanted to interject is because he has said that you cannot sponsor a motion or a bill without obtaining concurrence from the State House. I can tell you that's not true. Personally, I'm currently pushing a bill which I have not even consulted with the presidency, but it's out of my realization that we need to make devolution work better. The so-called County Development Equalization Bill, which is currently being about to be tabled before the Senate. So it is not true. Members of by the way, when you compare the legislative history of members of Parliament ruling towards Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy and the NASA, those two are not comparable. They rarely bring motions, people from NASA, members of Parliament. I say that because of our parliamentarian last time. They rarely bring bills. In fact, show me one single bill. Show me. No. It is something. No. You can't say that. You can't say that because this is something that is in public knowledge and realm. You can Google. You can always check in parliamentary records. There is no single bill that was ever tabled by a parliamentarian from NASA for the last 5 years, which went. Except I can tell you.